He slipped the paper back across the table as if it were tainted and remarked, "I think we both know this isn't about money." Lee sat with his hands folded, watching his gaze flicker between the description of the performance assessment and whatever flimsy justification he was trying to come up with. He went on, as if he were doing her a favor by just letting the term linger, "You've been solid." However, a large portion of this accomplishment was due to teamwork. We do not wish to foster a culture of self-sacrifice. Like packing peanuts, solid like grout, or something you don't see until it molds or leaks. This was after Lee's feature launch pulled in a record-setting quarter, after her design doc had been passed around like scripture at every cross-functional team meeting. The same launch her manager took credit for during last month's exec roundtable, grinning like a man who'd personally coded the damn thing between rounds of golf. "We're just trying to be fair," he added. "We decide what you're worth, and for now, that means no adjustment." That phrase, "we decide what you're worth," settled over her skin like a rash. It didn't sting right away. It crawled slow, deliberate, into her chest, her spine, her teeth. Her smile didn't break. She didn't cry, didn't rage, didn't even blink, just nodded once. The way women are taught to when they're being punished for outshining someone mediocre and male. "Of course," she said, calm, polite, dead behind the eyes. She stood, collected the folder she'd brought that no one had bothered to open, and walked out of the glassbox conference room like a ghost at her own funeral. Her badge clicked her into her floor. A ping on Slack, something dumb. Someone forgot the new Jira workflow. Another ping, an eating invite for a post-mortem that would mostly be a blame carousel. She ignored both. Instead, she walked past the snack wall, those stupid artisanal oat bars no one eats, and into the unisex bathroom with the broken lock on the third stall. It was always empty. In that half-lit stall, surrounded by tile the color of existential despair, Lee sat on the toilet lid, pulled out her phone, and opened the unread LinkedIn message she'd been ignoring for 2 weeks. "Lee, big fan of your last release. I know you're probably not looking, but if you ever want to chat, we're building something ambitious over here, and I'd love your brain on it. Coffee, dinner, just a quick call. Best, Noah, VP Product, Parallax." She had left it unread on purpose. Not because she wasn't curious, but because she knew. She knew that opening it meant letting a crack form in the dam she'd been patching for 3 years. Every ignored roadmap, every ghosted promotion cycle, every slide she made that someone else presented. Lee stared at the screen. Her reflection in the phone's black frame looked exhausted. Not tired. Used. She clicked reply. Her fingers hovered, then typed, "Dinner sounds good. Let's talk." She hit send. And just like that, the simmer inside her turned sharp. Focused. A different kind of fire. When she walked back out, nobody noticed she'd been gone. Her manager strolled by with his stupid hydro flask and said, "Appreciate you being a team player, Lee." She looked him in the eye and said, "Of course. Always here to help." He kept walking and she kept burning. The restaurant was one of those places with dim lighting and overpriced Brussels sprouts, the kind of spot execs choose to feel dangerous while eating $60 sea bass in suede loafers. Lee didn't care. She wasn't there for ambience. She was there to be underestimated. Noah, Parallax's VP of Product, waved from the corner booth like they were old college buddies instead of 2 people who'd exchanged a single LinkedIn message and a 6-word email chain. He was mid-30s, dressed like a startup poster child, buttoned down, rolled sleeves, shoes that said, "I jog, but only for networking." She slid into the booth across from him, calm as moonlight. "Lee," he grinned. "Thank you for coming. Honestly, when you replied, I did a double take. Been watching your releases for a while now. That ops dashboard? Chef's kiss." She gave him a polite smile. "It was fine." "Fine," he laughed. "You basically gave your old company an extra revenue stream overnight." "Funny," she said, sipping her wine. They didn't see it that way. His expression shifted, barely, but she saw it. That flicker of recognition, the scent of opportunity. He leaned in. "Look, I won't do the hard sell, but I'm not going to lie. We need someone like you. The next 12 months for Parallax are critical. We're gunning for the enterprise clients your team's been circling for years." But we want to do it smarter, faster, cleaner. He paused, giving her space to lean in if she wanted. She didn't. She just set her glass down and said, "You've got smart people, but you're building from the outside." Noah blinked. Outside. You're guessing at pain points. I've lived them. Your competitor is playing chess with missing pieces. I know where the bodies are buried and who dug the holes. His lips parted slightly, and then he let out a low chuckle. Damn. Okay, that's the kind of energy I like. Lee smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when you're flattered. The kind you give when a trap just clicked. She leaned back in the booth, letting the silence settle between them like dust. Then, with surgical precision, she said, they shelved a product last year. Internal name was Keystone. Real-time insights layered over usage metrics, filtered by role and function. Sales goldmine, but it never got out of sandbox. Why? Noah asked, eyes locked. She shrugged. Leadership said it was too speculative. Translation: it didn't come from someone with the right title. My title. He sat back, processing. You're kidding. I spent 6 months mapping it out. Product vision, monetization pathways, customer segmentation. Engineering even had a working prototype, but it got iced in favor of another analytics widget that looked better in investor decks. Noah exhaled, low and slow. You still have the roadmap? I have better than the roadmap, Lee said. I have the clarity of watching someone else drive it into a ditch. For a beat, he didn't say anything. Then, if we built that, with you leading the charge, Lee cut in. You wouldn't just be launching a new feature. You'd be showing the market what happens when you listen to the people who actually build the damn thing. He grinned again, slower this time. I'd want to bring you in high. Leadership, stakeholder, equity. Lee nodded like she hadn't already guessed every word of that sentence before he said it. I'm not here for a promotion, she said. I'm here to build something that reminds certain people I wasn't a footnote in their quarterly roadmap. I was the reason it worked at all. He raised his glass. Then let's remind them. She didn't toast. She just said one condition. Name it. When we launch, she said, I want to be listed as the lead on the patent. His eyebrows lifted, impressed. That's bold. No, she said. It's overdue. The check came. He paid without looking. As they stood, he offered his hand. Lee didn't shake it. Instead, she said, send me a term sheet. Let's build the thing they were too afraid to greenlight. And she walked out into the night, air sharp and cold against her face, heart pounding not from nerves, but from clarity. This wasn't career progression. This was reclamation. She didn't just want the throne. She wanted them to know who built it. On Monday, Lee showed up at 9:04 a.m. instead of her usual 8:30. No apology, no excuse. Just a travel mug of lukewarm coffee and a stare that looked through people like office glass. Her laptop opened with the same grace as a coffin lid. For 8 hours, she gave them the bare minimum illusion of presence. She clicked through Confluence, added a few polite comments to Jira tickets she used to personally rewrite, showed up to meetings on mute, smiled when spoken to, nodded when ignored. The team chalked it up to burnout. Post-launch fatigue. The cost of giving it her all. Her manager, Brent, king of the mediocre, noticed too, but not in the way that mattered. In one stand-up, someone asked about improvements to Lee's dashboard interface. Brent actually laughed. I think Lee's on her spiritual retreat arc right now, he said. Let's not overload her. Baby steps back to engagement. Yeah. No one laughed, but no one pushed back either. That was the thing about Brent. He didn't need to be respected to feel powerful. He just needed silence. And Lee was handing it to him like gift wrap. At 5:01 p.m., she closed her laptop and walked out without a word. But the war didn't start at 9. It started at 10:17 that night. By then, Lee was logged into the parallax staging environment, hair in a bun, face lit by dual monitors. While her old team slept like sheep under Brent's lullabies, Lee was sketching out architecture with Parallax's principal engineer, Jamie, a woman who actually asked questions before offering opinions. Is this how they had it structured? Jamie asked, pointing to a load balancer Lee had just diagrammed. Unfortunately, yes, Lee said, which is why their error rates spike whenever traffic hits over 60K concurrent users. Jesus, Jamie replied, sipping from a can of LaCroix that had gone flat hours ago. But don't worry, I already built out a better version in the test repo. God, I love having you here. Don't thank me yet, Lee muttered. Not even done bleeding them out. The product they were building, Keystone Redux, was a Frankenstein of all the good ideas Lee had filed away over the years. Ideas Brent had rolled his eyes at. Ideas legal had said were premature. Ideas that would have made millions if someone with a better title had pitched them. By Thursday, Brent was seeing her less. Her name stopped appearing in prep docs for cross-functional syncs. A new UX hire asked if she was still on the dashboard team. Lee smiled and said, I'm just letting the silence do the talking. Friday afternoon, Brent dropped a comment on Slack. Need Lee's sign off if she's still conscious sleeping face. 5 minutes later, Lee pasted a perfect 3-paragraph response with citations, attached documentation, and a one-line fix. She didn't say anything else, just went back to her dual life. By midnight, she was on a Zoom with Parallax's legal counsel, reviewing her IP clause for the 3rd time. No non-compete enforcement, no gray area, not even a whimper of resistance from the contract she'd amended 6 months ago when she helped out with a vendor compliance audit. Funny how no one noticed the clause about pre-existing inventions not being subject to post-termination restrictions. The next morning, Brent Instagrammed a blurry mimosa boomerang from some hotel brunch buffet. Lee was finalizing the first usable beta build of Keystone with Parallax's dev team. It worked flawlessly. And back at her old job, no one had a clue she'd already moved on in everything but name and payroll. In one meeting, Brent said, Lee, do you even want to be here anymore? She looked up from her screen, held his eyes, and said calmly, you first. The intern snorted. Brent didn't. She spent the rest of that day transferring old bookmarks to a personal Notion, downloading email chains, archiving Slack DMs like little trophies, a breadcrumb trail of every time she was right and ignored and then proven right again. She made herself small in their system. But every night, she grew somewhere else. She wasn't quitting. She was infiltrating. The name tag said Spalding, Director of Innovation, Silver Incorporated. But Lee already knew that. Everyone chasing enterprise contracts in the SaaS world did. Silver wasn't just a whale. It was the whale. 12-figure procurement budgets, glacial but permanent decision cycles, and the kind of influence that made competitor logos sweat off their pitch decks. She spotted him during the morning coffee crawl at the Emerging Tech Strategies Summit in Denver. Her badge was flipped backward, her company field listed as independent consultant. Hair down, blazer unbuttoned. Just enough polish to look credible. Just enough ambiguity to disappear when needed. Eli stood at the cream dispenser, struggling with a lid that refused to fit his compostable cup. Lee slid in beside him and said, that lid's the same vendor that built our onboarding funnel. Always looks good until it collapses under real-world pressure. He laughed. A few pleasantries. She let him remember her, not immediately in layers. First the name, then the dashboard, then the redesign that cut user friction by 32% and got quoted in a Gartner blog without her company even noticing. You left that team? He asked, genuinely surprised. Not officially, she said, taking a sip of black coffee. Still in transition. Exploring options. Eli smiled, leaned casually against the edge of the bar height table. Well, they definitely dropped the ball if they let you get restless. Restless is an interesting word, Lee said. Then, without changing tone, without blinking, let me ask you something. Sure. She leaned in slightly. Not flirty, not conspiratorial, just enough to let the air shift between them. If someone offered you a real-time metrics overlay with per-user customization, admin-level filtering, native integration with your internal data model, and zero data latency at peak load, what would you pay for it? He blinked. Wait, you talking about? I'm not talking about anything, she said, calm as lake water. Just wondering how much a version of something like that might be worth if it actually worked. She let the silence ride. The moment he looked at her hard, the way a shark looks at turbulence in the water, curious, but calculating. I'd schedule a meeting, he said. With who? He smiled. Whoever's building it. She smiled back. Smart answer. By the time the keynote started, he had accidentally invited her to sit in his row. And by the time lunch rolled around, he was 3 bites into his quinoa bowl before saying, "Shoot me a contact I can trust. My team would need an NDA in place before we go deeper." Lee just nodded, typed one name, Noah Carr, and slid her phone back into her blazer. "Can I ask?" he said. "Why no? Why you?" She looked down at her napkin, where she'd been idly tearing a corner off like a slow peel. "'Cause I'm tired of watching good ideas rot on the vine while mediocre men with fragile egos call it pruning." He raised his eyebrows, impressed. "Fair." She didn't say more. Let it hang in the space between clinking silverware and bad background jazz. 2 days later, back in her apartment, Lee opened the shared drive labeled parallax_keystone_legal. A new folder had been added, client_s_NDA_signed. Inside, a timestamped PDF, executed clean, binding. She stared at it for a long time, not because she was surprised, it was always going to happen. She just needed to feel the weight of it. Her old company had chased Silver for 3 years, spent hundreds of thousands on dinners, pilots, deck after deck of pitch fluff, and all it took for Silver to finally bite was one hypothetical, a whisper, a maybe, and her. She clicked the folder closed, then opened Slack. "Noah, got the NDA. Silver wants to see the demo next week." "Holy hell, Lee, this is real," he replied. "Let's make it irreversible." No reaction emoji, no exclamation points, just purpose, quiet, and absolute. The email was exactly 3 sentences long. Subject: stepping back. Body: after a lot of reflection, I've decided to step back and focus on my health. It's been a meaningful few years. I'm proud of what we built. My last day will be this Friday. Low drama. Just a time-stamped goodbye that hit Brent's inbox at 7:02 a.m. on a Tuesday while he was still in line at his spin class juice bar. By the time he got to the office and saw it, Lee had already cleared the sticky notes off her monitor and packed her keyboard wrist rest, the only thing she ever made personal. Brent responded 15 minutes later, "Makes sense. We figured you'd been winding down. Hope you land somewhere that works better with your energy. Let me know if you need a reference." A reference. From the man who once told her she was a little intense for product work. She didn't reply. No goodbye post on Slack. No email with blurry team photos and emoji hearts. When the design intern tried to start a thread titled Lee Appreciation Station, it got buried under a flood of lunch order threads and sprint updates. By noon Friday, her company badge was deactivated. Her Git access revoked, email wiped. Brent walked past her desk once, saw it clean, and made some joke about another millennial burnout wave. Nobody laughed, but nobody argued either. He thought it was over. He thought Lee had lost. But while he was deleting her from Asana, Lee was already on board at Parallax. Her employee profile had gone live yesterday. Her calendar was booked with engineering sprints, legal check-ins, and, most critically, a meeting labeled silver_live_demo_walkthrough. Same smile, same voice, new armor. And the best part? She checked the non-compete clause herself twice. The original version was boilerplate, but last year, when legal needed her signature on a scope expansion for a compliance project she managed after hours, she'd snuck in an addendum. Section 6.3, nothing herein shall restrict the employee from developing or contributing to technologies conceived independently of company resources, and where no proprietary code or confidential data is utilized post-termination. It passed. No one questioned it. She remembered the lawyer's signature, sloppy, rushed, probably done while half-watching a webinar. Now that little clause was her parachute, her battering ram, her shield. If anyone tried to push it, they'd find themselves staring down a clean clause and a trail of untouched IP. Not a single file transferred, not a line of code stolen, just Lee and her memory. Friday evening, she walked out of the building with a single shoulder bag and a half-used pack of gum. The sky was pale gray, low clouds pushing over the city like someone dragging a blanket across concrete. She didn't look back, didn't need to. She already knew what was coming. Inside the company she just left, meetings were being shuffled. Silver had canceled a follow-up call. No reason given. A procurement lead stopped replying. Brent blamed vendor fatigue. Their VP of sales said it was just year-end noise, but Lee knew better. She could feel it, the pull of gravity shifting. Not dramatic, not yet. Just the subtle turn of something massive starting to pivot. And now she was the force they'd never see coming because they thought she'd quit. She hadn't. She'd only started. The first ripple came in the form of a canceled Zoom invite. It was supposed to be a key renewal conversation with Silver. Annual contract, 7 figures, practically guaranteed. The team had spent weeks prepping, decks polished, every line item triple-checked, Brent rehearsing his client delight lines in front of the mirror like an aging game show host. Then, 15 minutes before the call, an email. Apologies, we'll need to reschedule. Something came up. No immediate next availability. No follow-up, no calendar hold, no explanation. Just gone. Brent rolled his eyes and blamed procurement red tape. They'll come back. They always do, he said, waving it off like a stray fly. Except they didn't. Then came the second ripple. An internal whisper passed from sales to ops to someone on the product team. A mid-sized fintech client had mentioned they were evaluating a newer player, something faster with better user filtering, lower latency, and no internal bureaucracy. Brent heard about it during a Friday sync. Parallax, he scoffed, barely looking up from his phone. Let them try. They're just burning VC money to look important. Lee would have corrected him, but Lee wasn't there. She was miles away, in a co-working space that smelled like espresso and industrial carpet, hunched over a whiteboard with 3 engineers and 1 paralegal, finalizing the product stack she'd once been forced to compromise on. This is exactly what we pitched them last year, Jamie said, stepping back to look at the schema Lee had just diagrammed, like, almost verbatim. Lee capped the marker. Yep. Except this time, it won't get stalled in a committee trying to justify its own existence. They had built the bones in just under 6 weeks. Foundation, a lightning-fast API gateway she'd helped prototype back at her old job, only now unshackled from the nonsense layers Brent insisted on adding for cross-functional optics. The analytics dashboard, fully modular, dynamic query filters by user role, something legal once claimed might confuse admins. Now it was the selling point. And behind all of it, Lee had embedded the core innovation, an adaptive prioritization engine that responded to live traffic signals. Her design, her math, her name. She filed the provisional patent that Monday. Filed by Lee Rossner, title, Adaptive Prioritization Layer for Enterprise Data Visualization Platforms, filed through Parallax's IP legal team. Status, provisional complete, number assigned. It hit the U.S. Patent Office registry at 11:43 a.m. sharp. At 2:12 p.m., back at her old company, Brent got an email from a junior dev asking if they should move forward on the dashboard priority layer ticket Lee had left half-finished before resigning. Brent's reply was one line, table it. Feels redundant. He had no idea how right he was. Later that week, a recruiter pinged Brent privately on LinkedIn, curious. Do you have insight into why Parallax is suddenly replicating your feature roadmap? We're seeing some overlap. Thought you should know. Brent didn't respond. Instead, he pulled up their internal roadmap and stared at it for a long time, chewing on the end of a pen like it might give him answers. By then, another client had gone quiet. Silver still hadn't rescheduled. Product usage stats were down, though nobody could point to why. In the break room, someone joked that the dashboard looked haunted. But it wasn't ghosts. It was echoes of every idea Lee ever pitched, ever refined, ever left behind, because someone with a fancier title needed to pretend it was theirs. Now those echoes were coming back sharper, cleaner, better funded, and this time, they weren't asking for permission. They were claiming their name, one signature at a time. The ink was dry, the contract signed. Silver was officially on board, not in theory, not in talks signed. The document was 10 pages shorter than Brent's last proposal and twice as powerful. No bloat, no buzzwords, best results, real-time metrics, user-driven filtering, admin-level oversight, 99.998% uptime, and no gatekeeping. Silver's legal team called it the cleanest platform adoption deal they'd ever seen. Lee read the signature page 3 times, not because she doubted it, but because she wanted to memorize the timestamp. Monday, 10:03 a.m. effective immediately. Pilot starts Wednesday. At 10:07 a.m., she opens Slack and pinged Noah. It's done. I want the press release up before they're all hands. Noah, cutting it close. You want to wait till the product's live? Lee, no. I want the blood to dry on camera. He sent back a smirking emoji and a thumbs up. The team spun into motion. By noon, PR had a draft. The title was solid. Parallax secures Silver as flagship client with industry-first metrics platform. The subheading, though, wasn't quite there. Lee messaged the comms lead directly. Add this. Led by former head of innovation at old company. Pause, then, you sure? Legal says that might raise eyebrows. She replied, exactly. The line stayed. The final version hit embargo status by Tuesday. Press contacts queued, quotes reviewed, screenshots attached. Silver's director of innovation had even added a glowing pull quote, finally found a product team that listens first and delivers second. This is what the future of enterprise platforms looks like. At 10 a.m. Wednesday, the launch was ready. Parallax's team hovered over Slack like pilots in a war room. Noah watched the countdown on his screen like it was the Super Bowl. Lee, she was at home, kitchen table, coffee steaming, wearing the same hoodie she'd worn during all the late-night builds. Her laptop open, browser split-screened. Left side, Parallax CMS, preloaded with the press release, embargoed for 10 more minutes. Right side, Zoom link to her old company's quarterly all-hands meeting. She hadn't deleted it from her calendar. Nobody had revoked it. She clicked join with her mic and camera off, just another black box in a sea of employees pretending to care while Brent and the CEO opined over bullet points and bar charts. At 10:27 a.m., Brent was talking about value streams and alignment wins. Someone fake laughed in the chat. At 10:28 a.m., the CEO started ramping up the closing hype, Q4 goals, project names. He said the word resilience 4 times. At 10:29 a.m., Lee refreshed the CMS preview, finger hovering over the mouse. She exhaled slowly, the way snipers do in the movies. At 10:30 a.m., click. The press release went live. Within 15 seconds, Tech Markets reposted it, then SaaS Today, then Silver's own comms account. A Slack notification popped up in her Parallax workspace. Jamie, they're reading it right now, aren't they? Lee smiled. On the Zoom, nothing happened for 10 seconds. Then the CEO's phone lit up on the lectern. He glanced down mid-sentence. He froze. Lee watched him squint, read, then slowly turn the screen toward Brent, who was standing off to the side. Brent looked. His jaw opened. Nothing came out. The CEO blinked once, twice, then said, "Let's take a short break before we continue." The feed went silent, just like that. No music, no transition slide, just a ripple of confusion as 200 employees stared at a frozen frame of 2 men realizing their entire quarter just collapsed. Lee didn't cheer. She didn't gloat. She just opened the press release one more time, scrolled down, read the subheading aloud to herself, led by former head of innovation at old company. She sipped her coffee. 3 years of being sidelined, and now she was the headline. Lee didn't bother changing her sweatpants. She didn't need war paint for this part. She was curled up on her couch, one leg tucked under her, laptop perched on a throw pillow. The morning sun cut through the blinds, just enough to spotlight her coffee mug. This meeting could have been an email, a going-away gift from a junior dev who'd seen too much, too young. She had the Zoom stream open, volume low. Her old company's quarterly town hall was in full swing, corporate theater at its finest. Same script, same faces. The CEO on center stage, pacing in front of a blue slide deck with words like agile growth, vision synergies, and elevated metrics. Every sentence bloated like a corpse in a river. Every pause calculated. Behind him, the usual suspects stood like background actors in a pharmaceutical ad, diversity by design, perfectly average smiles, lifeless eyes. And then there was Brent, smirking in the back, hands folded across a chest he probably still bench-pressed in medium-sized polos. He laughed when the CEO referenced future-proofing through product-led insight. Lee took a sip of her now-cold coffee and said, just loud enough for the room to hear, "Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea." And 10:30 a.m. hit. Right on cue, the CEO's phone lit up. It was almost funny how fast the blood drained from his face. One blink, two. His mouth opened slightly, like a man about to sneeze and realizing instead that his house is on fire. He turned the phone toward the COO. The COO read froze. Somewhere in the room, a presenter kept droning, oblivious, talking about pipeline projections. That word again, resilience, like it could duct tape the walls back up. Then the CEO raised a hand and interrupted. We're going to pause here for a moment. Pause. Not stop. Not emergency. Just pause. The stream cut to black. Lee sat back and opened the press release tab again. Still live. Still trending. Still quoting her. She scrolled to the bottom. Silver's pull quote had been edited post-launch. We've terminated our legacy vendor relationship effective immediately. Parallax's team delivered everything we asked for in half the time. The difference wasn't just the product. It was who built it. Lee reread that last line. It was who built it. Brent used to say things like, Silver is too conservative. They'll never adopt something that complicated. He called their director of innovation a LinkedIn blowhard with no technical depth. He said Lee didn't understand how to speak to executives. And now they'd signed with her team off a 22-minute demo and a roadmap she'd written on the back of a napkin 6 months ago. Not because she'd changed the industry, but because she'd finally stopped asking for permission. Her phone buzzed on the table. Text from Noah. They're panicking. Silver just called to confirm they'll be naming us as sole platform partner in their next investor call. Q1 revenue forecast just spiked 37%. Another. They said the prototype feels like what they always hoped the other platform would become. Lee stared at the screen, then closed her laptop. No need to refresh anymore. It was done. At the old company, Slack would be melting. Someone would be blaming sales. Someone else would be digging up her old docs, scrambling to find a loophole, a counteroffer, anything. Brent would be quiet now. Not smug, not sneering, just quiet. And maybe, if he sat still long enough, he'd hear it, the sound of everything he ignored turning to smoke. Lee pulled a blanket over her legs and grabbed the remote. There was nothing left to watch. Only ash left to fall. The town hall never came back online. No email follow-up, no summary deck, no canned "thanks for your patience" Slack message. Just a hard blackout, like someone had yanked the plug from the wall and hoped the silence would muffle the implosion. By noon, her old team was already texting each other in paranoid riddles. Did you hear? Silver jumped. Is that early in the Parallax press release? And then Slack went quiet. Not because people weren't talking, but because they weren't talking there. Whole subchannels went dark. Threads stopped mid-keystroke. Even the emoji reacts froze like digital rigor mortis. Somewhere in the background, Brent was pacing. He'd tried calling the Silver account lead 3 times already. No response. His 4th email got hit with an auto-reply, "Please direct inquiries to our new product partner at Parallax." He was still silent. Probably rereading his own words from a month ago. Let them try. Now they had, and succeeded, without him. Lee, meanwhile, was in Parallax's downtown office, standing next to Noah with a glass of champagne she hadn't touched yet. Screens around them blinked with traffic analytics, media reposts, retweet counts. Someone had printed the press release and pinned it to the whiteboard like a trophy buck. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. LinkedIn was chaos. Former coworkers crawling out of the digital woodwork. "Hey, crazy timing, but I've been thinking of making a move too. So proud of you. You always deserved more. Any chance Parallax is hiring?" Recruiters sent full job offers without asking if she was looking. VCs were requesting coffee to chat about what's next. One email from her old director's boss's boss. Would love to reconnect. Incredible work. Let's catch up. She didn't respond. But she did notice who didn't message her. Brent. Nothing. Not a like, not a view, Not even the passive-aggressive congrats he used to post on other people's promotions like it cost him something. Lee knew why. Because his bonus was tied to the silver renewal. And now it was gone, evaporated, just like the lies he built his leadership style on. She lifted her glass as Noah walked up beside her. He was grinning like a kid on Christmas, tie loose, shirt sleeves rolled. "Hell of a day," he said. "Not bad," she replied. He nodded at the live feed of the press release tracker. 100,000 impressions in under 4 hours. "You broke the algorithm." "I didn't break it," she said, finally taking a sip. "I just stopped pretending it was rigged in my favor." Noah laughed. "Fair. Your value simply increased, for what it's worth." With her gaze fixed on the television, Lee cocked her head. Once more, it was there. That sentence, "We determine your value." It didn't hurt this time, but she heard it like a faraway echo. Unlike in that conference room weeks earlier, it didn't creep under her ribs. When it finally collapsed under its own weight, it felt tiny, like something ancient and broken. Because she made a decision now. Without smiling, she clinked her glass against Noah's, toasted, and let the press to continue to buzz. The true stars of the corporate jungle are you. Thank you for viewing. I'll turn off your old cubicle memories if you don't hit subscribe.